next speaker is known by many hats. For some, Jason Cohen is the successful founder who sold brands including Mama Says, Sensible Portions, Veggie Straws, Ricklin Orchards, and Mrs. Thinsters for more than $500 million. To the others, he's the guy who leveraged his experience to help Skinny Pop and its founders grow the brand from $10 million in sales to a $1.3 billion IPO in less than 3 years. And for others, he is the co-founder and CEO of Halen Brands, an operating company that invests in, acquires, builds, and operates food and beverage companies. And from the name, you might be able to guess, a Van Halen lover. But as I've gotten to know him, I've learned that while Jason may once have been known as the king of club, he's really the king of relationships. Whether it's bonding with buyers at retail channels, helping someone get front row tickets to a rock concert, or taking care of his employees, family, and team, Jason uncovers exactly what people need and offers solutions that make him excited to work with him. Today, he's going to share some tips on what he's learned from his decades in the industry and how you can apply them to your own business. So please welcome Jason. Start by talking about your very first job because I love this story. You weren't in the food industry. How did you start out?
I was always a fan of food and didn't know what I wanted to do. I graduated from the University of Maryland and I was a good student, an average student, not a great student, and I would go on my traditional interviews and everyone would say, well, we can start you off in the mailroom, and I'd go on interviews and I'd have these grandiose ideas, and the person that you were interviewing was always concerned about, well, this guy looks like he's going to ultimately want to take my job. He doesn't want this small job. So I ended up meeting a guy who was in the life insurance business, and he basically had a pedigree of, he was just a good guy, and I went to his house and I was impressed by everything that he's acquired. He was a young guy, and he basically told me that he started working for Northwestern Mutual, and I started to look at what Northwestern Mutual was, and it was this amazing company. And he said to me, stop talking about Northwestern Mutual. He said, the person in front of you only cares about you. They're going to identify whether or not to purchase something because they either like the way you're dressed, like the product that you're talking about, or more importantly, that you've identified something more important than what you're trying to sell them today. And I asked him what he meant by that. And I went and I shadowboxed him for about 6 months. And the key for that is I really wanted to learn what he was doing right to be successful. And half the meeting, we'd walk into that client's room, office, house, and he would start taking notes. 2 girls, 1 boy, likes soccer, Met fan, Yankee fan, wife, hot, ugly, pretty, And I was saying, what the hell are you doing? And he said, you got to get to know the person that you're trying to sell. And before you can sell them anything, you need to know what's important to them. So most of the interview was talking about, when is John's soccer game? Then that client would talk 10 minutes about his kid's soccer game. And he would ask, well, when is the next game? And he would say, on Wednesday. So what my mentor taught me was he would call that customer, and we all have customers and say, oh shit, so-and-so's calling, they want an order. He would say, how did the soccer game go? And he would sit back and listen for 10 minutes, and the client would talk proudly about his kid, and then he would hang up. The client would call back and say, oh, well, you forgot to ask me about the insurance policy. So he would reverse it. He wanted to build that trust in that relationship. So some of those key learnings early on were truly important in taking that into what ultimately we wanted to do within our own companies.
Okay, so you finish up in the insurance business. We're successful there, and you move into food. And I think this was a great setup, our last speaker, James, because he talked about focus, and that, along with relationships, is something you have when you're developing your products. So let's start with product. What do you need to keep in mind, and what do brands need to keep in mind when developing a product?
Well, clearly, if you go to any food show, everyone's there with a purpose, right? They've got great packaging, functionality, cool T-shirts, a nice-looking booth, and you're so excited to taste their products. And the first thing you do when you're trying to smile and you're like, where's that freaking garbage? I gotta spit this out or throw it out, is so many people forget that the product has to taste good. They completely forget that we are actually humans. We have to eat to live, and feel that functionality trumps everything else. And at the end of the day, if it doesn't taste good, people are going to say, okay, I'm going to Miami next week. What do I got to eat that's super healthy? They're going to force themselves to eat what they have to do. They're going to put on that string bikini. Not me. And when they get back from that vacation, they're going right back to comfort food. So the first thing I would say to anyone who's working on products, it's not, hey, I got this great idea, I want to create a zero sugar X, Y, and Z. It's, can I create a zero sugar X, Y, and Z that tastes like a full fat product? And until you have that, your packaging, everything else doesn't really matter, because you can get someone to purchase something once because it's a great looking product, but if it doesn't taste good, they're not going to tell anyone about it. And whether, that big celebrity or whoever is holding up that package on Times Square or whatever, he's not as important as that mom on that soccer field who says, you know what, I got 5 of my kids eating veggie straws. Well, what's a veggie straw? And then she tells 6 other people. That's what you need. You need free ambassadors that are going to endorse something because they've discovered it and think it's amazing.
But for someone to be an ambassador for your product, they do have to be able to easily pick out your product, and it has to stand out on the shelf. So, there's a lot of Me Too products right now, and you've created companies that have avoided that trap of being a Me Too product. Is there something special that you do when you're creating your products or when you think about developing them to make them stand out?
So if I take it back to Sensible Portions, which we were known for the veggie straws, and just so everyone is aware, when we started Sensible Portions, we did not know what we wanted it to be. We just really liked the name. We wanted it to be a platform. We wanted the ability to, when we sold the business, to show the CPG that we focus highly on this one category, but you're much smarter than us, and you've got a bigger bandwidth, you've got more training. You can take this and do these 5 or 6 other categories. So we may create packaging for 6 or 7 things that we don't want to do, but tell them that these are the things that they're buying. So for Sensible Portions, it was right after the low-carb phase, and the low-carb went like this, and then went like that. And when you ask people why it went like that, because look, low-carb was on fire, everyone wanted to eat it, the products tasted like crap. And so many people were rushing to market that the people who came out with bad products actually hurt it for everybody else. And then you got the Atkins and the few people who sustained it, but all these innovation brands that came out with just functionality but not taste decided, that they went away. So one of the things that we did is we looked at the marketplace, and I was just having young kids and said, my wife and I have a challenge of trying to get our kids to eat something with the word vegetable in them. Then, you look at what's on the snack shelf, and all the better for you products were like rice cakes or things that had bland taste, that were things that we didn't necessarily grow up on. And really simply, at the time, my partner and I were in Europe, and we saw people eating products that were made of potato, that were similar to macaroni that you would extrude, either pressure pop or flash fry, and they tasted like a potato chip. So when you go back 50, 100 years and you see what people were eating as consumers, they were eating potato chips. So truly, all we wanted to do was go in the middle, not full extreme. So a Dorito had 12 grams of fat, we wanted 6 or 7 grams of fat, but we wanted it to taste like a potato chip. So we created a potato puree, and we put some vegetable purees and flakes in the product and made a healthier version of a potato chip. And the concept was, if we can get you to start here, then maybe you can go even here. But if we wanted to have mainstream Target, Walmart, Costco, Sam's be able to identify quickly with low marketing dollars to be simple, stupid, and be able to attract as many customers as we could, veggie straws was the concept to do that with. After that, Skinny Pop was a phenomenon. It was built by two founders to around 10 million in sales, and to me, I've never seen a brand with no marketing be able to do so much on its packaging and tell people that it was okay to eat your face off. There were so many times where you would see someone with a big bag of whatever it was, and they were afraid to indulge. Skinny Pop gave people the approval to indulge. Chef's Cut, it was a jerky, but it tastes like steak in a bag. So the craftsmanship of the product, when we would give it to people, we would actually make a sandwich and bring it into a buyer's office. They've never had a jerky with a piece of bread before. And they would look at you like you're nuts, but I'm like, how many people today don't have time to make a sandwich? You can literally take 2 pieces of toast, your jerky, and eat it, and it's soft, and it's great.
Well, talking about the buyers,
Yep.
Once you had these great products, I want to make sure we address what you do in your buyer meetings and how you show value to those buyers. I think you really do some unique things when you're in those sessions.
So going back to the insurance days, I learned that, look, you have 15 or 20 minutes to make a first impression. And then when you look in that waiting room of how many people are in that waiting room or how many products that buyer is going to see over the next even 4 days, it's an enormous amount of distraction. And even if they tell you great things in that meeting, if you come back 2 or 3 weeks later with the results, they've already moved on. They've already made their decision. You've worked so hard within your organization to create what they want, and then you have to go back and tell them, oh, they've moved on, or she's changed her mind, or he's changed his mind. So what we developed was we have our own in-house staff that I call Ready, Aim, Fire. When I go on to a sales meeting, my graphic designer is ready for my text in the middle of that meeting. My marketing people are ready for my text. My operations people are ready. And the guy who's much smarter than me to talk about the technical parts of the business, about where that grain is from or why we chose Peruvian coffee, he's ready to go. And the reason for that is I could be in a meeting and show a buyer this particular product, and she may say, I wonder what that would look like if we moved the graphics here or changed it from red to blue, and you're taking all these copious notes. My cell phone is on, so my graphic designer can hear it. And I'll say, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And the buyer says, okay, so are we done? And I say, no, check your email. Pulls up her email. Guess what? That package that she created is right there. Is that what you like? Half the time they say yes. Half the time they say, you know what you first showed me was better. So you would have spent 2 weeks putting all this together to come back to find out that your first thing was right. So if you're going to spend the $2,000 or $1,500 to get on that plane, if you're going to spend the overnight hotel or get away from your family or your business, have all your people there, even if you can't fly them there. There's enough technology today to be able to get those questions answered. And when your graphic designer sees those results, he wants to be involved. When your marketing people can create a new tagline, they want to be there. And most importantly, your buyer knows that you're serious, and your buyer knows that you're ready to take their answers and actually put them to action, and that you're the guy in front of them or go in front of them that can actually get the organization to make those changes. There's so many people who come in with a broker, or the broker comes in and says, well, I got to get back to you. I don't know who makes that decision. They know they're working with someone who has that decision power opportunity.
So we've gotten to chat a lot, and one of the anecdotes I love is about Survivor and buyers. Will you share that story?
So going back again is trying to find out when you're with your buyers what they're actually interested in. And I remember going up to Trader Joe's, and the buyer was in her office, and I'm in the lobby, and I hear her talking to her friends about Survivor. Now, I haven't watched one episode of Survivor. So I'm going into Survivor on YouTube. I'm watching what I can to figure out what's going on. And I walk in, hey, did you see last night's episode of Survivor, right? And we spent about 35 minutes talking about why Survivor was so great that every Monday or every Tuesday, I became a Survivor fan. I had to watch it. Every Tuesday morning, we would either chat or text just purely about Survivor. And then I would get that email that I was talking about. Hey, when are those cookies going to be ready? Or when can you come back up here to show me that other item? It's taking the sales out of sales and finding what they actually like other than what you're doing, and then secondarily selling them the things that you want. Another big tip that I do is, a lot of people don't like to talk about their competitors. Those buyers are sitting at their desk, they're overscheduled, overworked, and they're never getting out to see anything else. There are a lot of times where I'll walk into a buyer's office and I'll say, have you seen X, Y, and Z product? And they'll say, no. And I'll say, it's on fire. I was just with the Target buyer and he said he can't keep it on shelf. Really? What am I establishing? I'm establishing credibility and trust. I'm not talking only about myself. Because the reality is if you have a really good buyer, that buyer, like everyone else, has a P&L, has a boss, and has an opportunity to keep that seat. So if you become that person that can help them keep their seat, then you become more valuable than just a commodity of a product. So when your product they've got 10 things in their set, and you're on that bottom list, I always say it's a lot easier to cut the person they don't know, right? If they know you, if you found them those 2 or 3 number 1 products, they're going to call you and say, hey, Jason, that item you just shipped us, it's really not doing what we wanted it to do. Is there any extra marketing dollars? Can we change the flavor? Can we look at one of those other packages we talked about? You want them to like you. You want them to like your story. And more importantly, you want them to like you because you're providing more value than just yourself and your brand. And in those 20 minutes that you have with that buyer, utilize that time to show them that you know more about the industry than just your brand.
So we talked a lot about 2 of your keys to success, the product, the buyer. But in the time we have left, I want to talk about team, because every single time I talk to you and I say, Jason, I saw this, it was amazing, great job with this, you're like, oh, it wasn't me, it was this person, or it was that person. And you're always giving credit to your team. How did you go about building this team that is so loyal to you and also just so motivated?
It's simple. It's be transparent with your team. Find out what is valuable to them. Give them a piece of the pie. Make sure you're giving them enough equity. Most importantly is trying to find the people that want to be in that boat. And what I mean by that is not everybody is motivated by money or by equity. It may be, I have a little kid at home, so I want to come in at 10 o'clock versus 8 o'clock. I'll stay to 7. Is understanding who your people are. Giving them equity so that when you sell your brands, they can actually see what they're going to get or how hard they worked, and that they're going to get what they thought they were going to deserve, that it didn't just all go to the founder or his investors. And most importantly is pick people who either never got the opportunity to really shine with their previous owner or previous investor. They came in, let's say, 2nd or 3rd stage, and there were 2 people in front of them, and when they just sold the company for $100 million, their boss got $5 million and they got $200,000. That person is hungry as hell to have that next opportunity, and the next opportunity with that same business or same founder is a $200,000 bonus. I want that guy to be the $10 million guy, the guy that can make $10 million, or the girl that can get $5 million. So it's finding the people that are ultimately going to run your business beyond what you thought they can do.
So we just have a couple minutes left, but you have such a unique experience in that you're a founder, you're an investor, you're an operator. We've touched upon these 3 keys to success and product, team, and sort of building the relationship with the buyer. If you had to leave, our audience with one last key to success or piece of advice, what would that be?
It's hard to pick one, but there's a couple of things. One is, you guys know your business better than most of us. A lot of people call me and say, Jason, what should I do? You already know what to do. You've already started your business. You've started your plan. Utilize the opportunity to talk to people like us to help build your business. just because it worked for us or we did what we did doesn't mean it's going to transcend the same way for you. But my recommendation is, when you first start out, and look, I didn't have any money either, is you want to hire this guy or this girl, but I can only afford X, is not looking at people as an annual salary. So if that super rock star is a $300,000 person, and they're in your office and say, I can get you in front of Starbucks, the head buyer at Costco, Target, this is what I did at my old business, take the chance. And take the chance on a 60 or 90-day handshake. If that person can't get you in front of all those customers or get those customers to talk to you about what they want to see in your brand, cut them loose in 90 days. It costs you $75,000. The same amount of money it was going to cost you to hire that D or C level person who wouldn't have gotten you in front of those people anyway. When you find that right person, they're going to overpay for themselves, I promise you. And the one thing that all these businesses need are sales. Getting to $2 or $3 million is not sales. Getting to $5 million is starting to get sales. But getting from 5 to 25 to 30 to 70, what was shown in the last presentation, is only going to happen through relationships. And getting that person with the strongest relationships is going to validate who you are. Because you might have a great product, a great brand, but they know Brian Ponticello, my head of sales. They did Skinny Pop with him. They did this one with him. They did that one with him. Having him come in with you, you automatically get his credibility. So finding that credibility is significant.
Well, Jason, I think these are some amazing points for our audience to take away with them. Unfortunately, we are out of time, but thank you so much for no cane with a hook. Thank you so much for joining us, and we're going to bring Jeff back up on stage.
Thank you very much.